I, Vince McMahon, choose The Rock.
Whoa! And there you hear it. The first pick in the draft.
If you come at the king, you best not miss.
Acknowledge us.
Hey, guys, we're here at the Red Carpet Ring. We'll talk about why the WWE Draft needs to end now, because they need to destroy the draft. You guys get the likes as we come into the Red Carpet Ring. We're going to talk about the whole WWE Draft and why it just needs to be done completely. Like I said, just let's get into it. Thing about it is, and that's the first thing I want to talk about. Every week, we see Raw and SmackDown superstars on both shows, or at least as they don't have more than they should. They appear on the shows way too much. And the thing about it is, we see that. And that's been a number of occasions. We've seen it actually this week alone. We've seen that. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, we saw Kevin Owens on Monday Night Raw. Now, he clearly is a SmackDown superstar. We know that. We know that's the case with that situation. Kevin Owens is not a Raw person. And that was one part of this recent episode of Raw. Another one, Nia Jax was on Raw. Now, Bayley, I understand her. Bayley just got transferred from SmackDown to Raw because we did not see Bayley on this episode of SmackDown because she got transferred. So Bayley, I'm excluded from this. I'm talking about Nia Jax. And there was really no sense for her to be on there. But we see that quite often. Now, that was just Raw. We see that going on. And we see that quite often. Now, I know they had to sell for Royal Rumble. We really didn't need Rhea Ripley, who's from Raw, on SmackDown. We didn't need her on there. And then, of course, I know Liv Morgan, and we, was on there. Then everything. But we see that quite a bit. We see it quite often, having all these women and men bounce around from show to show to show. We see that a lot. And matter of fact, not only that, they do have matches on opposite shows. And that's the crazy part about that. That happens a little bit too much. And I'm just saying, we don't need to see that anymore. We don't need to. It don't make no sense to do a brand split at this point at all. I don't understand. It just don't make sense to me. It don't make sense to me. So, I mean, not only we saw that, I believe they announced as well next week on SmackDown, another person that's not even a part of SmackDown, they're going to have a match. And we're talking about Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan's going to have a match next week on SmackDown, despite the fact she's on Raw. Now, unless they got some plan to transfer all these women, which I doubt, it don't make sense to do that. It just doesn't. And we see it's too much, way too much. And let's be honest here. I'm gonna break it out another reason why the brand split finally needs to end. Let's be honest. Again, like I said, times have changed. Now we in the era where we have Raw on Netflix. SmackDown went back to USA. We got NXT moving, evolving as well on CW. Well, I'm just talking about Raw and SmackDown, not NXT. I know the photos up there for NXT, but since Raw's on Netflix, a streaming service, not a TV network, back then TV networks were known to request certain stars to be on each brand. We know that, and we know that they wanted certain people on their brand to help boost the ratings. We are aware of that too. That is known. That's been shown in history. That's definitely shown in history. So we know that's the case. They've always done that. But it's no longer needed. It's just no longer needed, and it just don't make sense at all. And when they do that, it don't really help at all. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Now, USA Network used to have Raw request certain people and all that. We know that, but you don't have to do that now. You don't have to do that now. The days of that are over, and that goes along with the draft. So there's no more of that boosting ratings and having certain people on the show. You don't have to do that anymore. It don't make any sense. It don't. So, and then and as we can see, Netflix is allowing WWE to get some freedom into how long they end their show each week. You don't really need a brand split for that anymore. Don't make sense. Now, this is another number one reason. This is another big reason why, and I hear nobody talk about it that much. But I'm gonna talk about it. This is why the brand split is no longer needed. The thing about it is when it comes to brand split, that's exactly what's supposed to be, a split between two brands, Raw, SmackDown. Because when we first introduced the brand split back in 2002, that was monumental. But like I said, now we in the days of we on a big platform. WWE's evolving, and Netflix and Raw have shown that. If you haven't paid attention, it's shown that they have changed the game for the better, not just for WWE, but for wrestling industry altogether as a whole. That's just what it comes down to. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether you want to accept it, that's what it is. And that's how it's gonna that's how it's gonna stay at the end of the day. There's no way around that. There's no way around it at all. There's no way you could change that whole dynamic. It's definitely gonna make everybody's gonna shift. Next several years, mark my words, all wrestling companies will shift over and do things differently than they did before. So that's just something you have to keep in mind when it comes to that. Now, let me get into one of the big reasons why I believe that the brand split should be no longer. And the reason I'm going to say right now, and like I said, they don't really touch on this like they used to, but this used to happen too back in the day, especially with the first brand split. And they started a little bit with the second brand split when it was reintroduced in 2016. But what I'm going to talk about actually is I'm talking about the whole, there's no more branded pay-per-views or PLEs anymore. I don't know if you guys remember or if you're not familiar with it. Back then with the brand split, at the first brand split and even beginning of the current one now, they used to have branded pay-per-views at the time. Branded only pay-per-views. If you look on the left, that's the Great American Bash. Back in the day, in 2005, 2006, that was a SmackDown exclusive. And that's the 2004 Great American Bash with Tori Wilson on the cover. Now, if you look to the right, that's Vengeance 2005, the famous Hell in a Cell match with Triple H versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship. Vengeance was a Raw branded pay-per-view, and they only had that. And the thing about branded pay-per-views, for those who are not familiar with it, it will be a pay-per-view. It won't be both Raw and SmackDown superstars like we see with all the PLEs. It will only be Raw superstars on one pay-per-view, or SmackDown superstars on a SmackDown pay-per-view. And this was a big benefit of the brand split. We haven't seen this, I want to say, in the past 8 years. 2017, I believe, was the last time they really did it, if I want to be honest. They haven't done it for years, but this was a big thing that they did back in the day. And I haven't seen that since then. And I don't think they're never ever going to go back to that. I don't think they are, but it was a good thing to have. It was a good thing to have, and they just stopped it. Now I know that when they talk about buy rates, they don't have that no more because streaming. It probably was producing the best numbers. I understand that. I understand that too. But it still was a great benefit to have. It was a very good benefit to have. But they don't do that anymore. I wish they would get back to that because I will be to doing a looking towards the PLE for Clash of Champions. But times have changed though. They have changed for the better, I would say. But that's how it used to go. It used to go down just like that. Now, like I said, this was 2000 and 2004, 2005. This was the first brand split that happened. So there was, I know, like I said, some people may not be familiar with the whole brand split as far as that goes, because I used to like seeing, only a Raw exclusive or a SmackDown exclusive. I always used to be very invested in that, and it was a game changer because we never heard of that before. But since then, even for you guys that don't like it, I get it. This is the days before AEW came along. This is the days before TNA was really getting to where it's at now. So there's competition again, whether you think it's competition or not. So they really don't. That's one reason they really don't need it anymore when it comes down to that. Now, like I said before, those were those were pretty much the ruthless aggression days. That's what it came down to those times. Now we can talk about a little more current stuff that happened. This was about 8 years ago. This right here is about 20 years ago. We're talking about, but there was a little bit more current as far as branded pay-per-views go. So, and what I'm talking about specifically, we're talking about we had Clash of the Champions 2016. Now this is the second brand split. This was for Raw. And as you guys can see there, those were all mostly Raw branded titles. Kevin Owens Universal title, all the red titles, United States at the time, a Raw title. So that was the thing about that then. So that did happen. Just to, refresh your memory. That was a Raw branded pay-per-view when they did reintroduce the brand split. They tried to do it again, but it didn't work, and I believe that was the reason because the buy race was not good enough. They was losing money instead of making money. And SmackDown had their own too. They had No Mercy. This was back in 2016, same year. The Miz and Maurice on that cover. It was only for SmackDown. Then they tried something different. We saw Clash of Champions on Raw branded. They tried to move it to SmackDown later. This was the following year, 2017. We saw Charlotte AJ. That was a SmackDown brand. And then after 2017, they just nixed the whole plan altogether. And they said, forget it. We're not going to do it. If we do any pay-per-views or PLEs now, it'll include both brands Raw and SmackDown. But since then, you really don't need a brand split. Brand split, you really don't need anymore. And that was 8 years ago. Last time I think they had the last branded only pay-per-view. So with that, it don't make sense, And like I said, not only is the business evolving with that, this is another reason really you don't need it. You may not think too much into it, but this makes a perfect reason why you don't need brand splits anymore. And this is recent news. I talked about this before. The WWE TNA partnership. Now, we got Raw on Monday, NXT Tuesday, SmackDown Friday, but we do have a partnership with TNA, and TNA broadcasts TNA Impact on Thursday nights. And we in this recent episode, we seen NXT stars go over there, and we've been seeing TNA stars go to NXT. So when you do have stuff like this going on, the Netflix deal and this whole partnership, you really don't need a brand split anymore. You got people on each other's shows anyway. What's the purpose of a brand split? So that's the whole thing. That there's even rumors I say, that John Cena may go to TNA, make an appearance, and may even try to win the TNA World Championship. But that's what I heard. I don't know if that's true, it's official. Just want to notate that. There's rumors floating around. Maybe you guys heard already. If you haven't, that's what I've heard recently. But you don't need a brand split anymore. It makes no sense. And then this whole WWE Draft.
All right, these are the reasons that I have for why the WWE Draft needs to end now. And it's very, very sensible. Things are not the way it used to be, and change needs to be made like yesterday. Soon to reveal some pop-up, guys. You guys let me know what you think. Until then, you already know what it is. OUT.